Bruce Feinm, and our CIA operative, joins us in this segment as we celebrate Mother's Day this weekend. Bruce and John, welcome back to the broadcast. So Bruce, we are still grappling with the leak at the Supreme Court of Alito's rough draft of the Roe versus Wade ruling. What do you make of this? The Chief Justice has asked for an investigation. Obviously, it had to come from a law clerk, and you could almost assume that one of the justices were aware. What is this impact?
Well, let's think of the background. This is the first time that an actual draft opinion has been circulated. There have been a handful of cases where a decision, the result, has been leaked prematurely, but not the opinion. I remember Justice Greer leaked the infamous Dred Scott decision to President James Buchanan, 1857. Even Roe versus Wade, the case that's under examination at present, the decision was leaked before it was actually issued, but not the opinion. So this is unprecedented. The other things to remember are that this is not, I don't think, a final decision. It's a draft, and there have been cases, I know because I read Supreme Court decisions, when what looks like was a dissenting opinion became a majority and vice versa because someone switched their vote at the 11th hour. Of course, you can't identify who that was, but that's possible. So it's not clear, even though the Chief Justice has authenticated the draft opinion, that it will stick. But putting that aside, I think it's a terrible mess for the court. I walk by the Supreme Court every day to and from work. There were very, very large demonstrations on both sides at the court supporting the pro-choice and pro-life views of the Constitution. And given the politicization of the issue, no matter what the court does, whether it backs down and does not overrule Roe or does, it will create an appearance of capitulating to political pressure. It will reduce to some extent the legitimacy of the court, and I think that's a bad thing. We need a separation of powers here. I will just make one comment where you'll see headlines today that Democrats are claiming the court is anti-majoritarian because public opinion polls suggest a substantial support for the Roe v. Wade policy. But remember, the court is supposed to be anti-majoritarian. After all, why would you need a Supreme Court at all if the majority was to rule? Whatever the majority decided would be the law, irrespective of the Constitution. So that's kind of a silly argument. But I think this overall is a very bad precedent for the court.
What really changes if the draft becomes the rule of the court in June?
Well, it's hard to forecast, Armstrong, less because the politics are uncertain than perhaps I would call the technology. First, the actual decision would entrust substantially to state legislatures, which vary in their political complexions, and marginally to Congress, the authority to establish abortion policy. It's clear that some of the liberal states, New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey, probably New Hampshire, California, will retain very, very liberal abortion laws. I know I was then living in California when Ronald Reagan, as governor in 1967, signed an abortion law that really was a precursor of Roe v. Wade. Many other states, of course, all have very strict restrictions on abortion. And there is a constitutional right to interstate travel, and I think it will be impossible for one state to prevent its citizens from traveling to a pro-choice state to obtain an abortion. But not everyone can afford an abortion, so the greatest burden would be on those who are impoverished. Moreover, there is this angle with technology. What happens when someone through interstate commerce obtains abortion pills into the home? It's not at all clear to me that a state could ban interstate commerce in that circumstance, where you're invading the privacy of the home. And it may well be that telemedicine will develop, where telemedicine can enable women to induce abortions without exiting the home. And that would obviously involve interstate commerce as well. Now, it's surely true that Congress, of course, could step in and say, as they've done in other cases, like lotteries and liquor, that the instrumentalities of interstate commerce cannot be used to help or facilitate an abortion. They might liken abortions like they do against the slave trade. You can't use interstate commerce to promote prostitution. I don't know whether Congress could do that at present, given the division between the Democrats and the Republicans. You'd need a supermajority on the Senate side. And that being the case, Congress may be inactive. We do know that during the 45 years that Roe was a precedent, that neither Congress nor state legislatures took action under Article 5 to attempt to amend the Constitution to establish, if you will, an overruling of Roe, as they did in other cases establishing citizenship for blacks and enfranchising women and 18-year-olds. So there's still a lot of unpredictables out there in front of us.
You know, Mr. Operative, Twitter has just been all over the place on this issue, but it's been also very interesting to follow Elon Musk and some of his questions that he's been raising as the new owner of Twitter. What do you and the intelligence community make of all this? Because it certainly reverberates.
I'm fascinated by it, Armstrong, because Elon Musk is a unknown when it comes to influence and pressure. I mean, he does a lot of incredible things. He's a very unusual guy and extraordinarily talented, besides the wealth, which is evidenced by his ability to think well over the horizon. And he's done something that is pushing the buttons of people on both sides, but especially on the left, because the censorship issue is a critical component of one of the struggling conflict areas we have in the country today, is the ability to silence people when you don't like what they're saying. And we have trampled all over the First Amendment, and the country is recoiling back on both sides and polarizing more. And I think the free speech aspect, the First Amendment, is numbered first for a very clear reason, as is the Second Amendment. When you lose your voice, you still can hold on to your freedom because there's another safety valve. But when you silence people with all the phrases that we have today with wokeism and all, you're creating pressure, and that pressure will vent. And I think what Elon Musk is doing is starting to bleed some of that pressure off of the nation while he changes the rules on censorship and the ability to silence people. The more talk we have, the less likely we are to have civil conflict. And it's a dangerous time. But with all this suppression of speech, it's very dangerous for the country.
You know, Bruce, who benefits most from the leak of Alito's draft?
It's not clear to me who benefits most, because if you think it was attempting to impose pressure on Justice Alito to change his vote, I don't think that's a very wise approach.
Move beyond the court and the organizations. Obviously, someone on the court wanted this out there to give them another midterm election issue that they can use to malign Republicans, malign the Supreme Court. There's got to be some benefit beyond the court.
Well, that may be a political calculation. It's not at all clear to me that an overruling would benefit the Democrats rather than the Republicans. After all, if there is an overruling, the pressure will be on Democrats, at least at the state legislative level and in Congress, to do something that they haven't really been doing for 45 years, try to legislate abortion policy. So it's not intuitively obvious to me that that would be the case. But leakers can make political miscalculations, and that may be the result. I just think it's a contingency that we won't know until, one, the opinion is issued, and then we actually have the elections. Surely the abortion policy is not in isolation at any election. We still have inflation, we have unemployment, we have the war in Ukraine, and all these other elements may be greater or lesser in the minds of the voters. So the impact of abortion, I say, is still a question mark in November of 2022.
Speaking of Ukraine, Mr. Operative, what is the latest with Putin bringing some kind of resolution to that region, or do you see it further escalating?
We're in a period right now, Armstrong, of realignment and restructuring and re-equipping. I think the casualty rate and the equipment loss that the Russians have sustained has to cause a pause, not so much a ceasefire officially, but they've got to reposition, resupply, and move more people around. I think it still could go in either direction, depending on how much pressure the U.S. can bring to bear and the West in general. There's still a very leaky sanctions process that hasn't turned the spigot off. So Putin is still making money and still in a position financially to continue on. But the reality on the ground is I don't see a quick end in sight. As we've talked before, I don't see any effort to send an emissary to try and diffuse, seek a ceasefire, hold in place, and do something to de-escalate the increasing violence.
How desperate are Putin and his inner circle to assassinate Zelensky?
I think if they could do it, they would have done it already. I think there's every effort in place to try and do it, because that would be a terrible blow to the Ukrainians. But the opposite of that is also something to consider, because Putin is in an odd position as a KGB guy. He's not a military person, and he's expending the military with a heavy expense now. They're paying a terrible price in men and equipment, and a humiliating price when it comes to post-war period for equipment and their ability to project power and influence people militarily. This is a dangerous situation, and the U.S. and the West is incrementally moving and ratcheting up, but we're not doing anything suddenly or deliberately. Like yesterday or day before yesterday, when the comment was made about a possible nuclear use or strike or some function of an underground or underwater explosion came from the Kremlin news outlet. But that kind of stuff went unanswered. That nothing was said or done about it. That was a terrible opportunity missed by the West to really change the narrative by a reckless comment like that comes out of an official news outlet. They could have done some moves like change the DEFCON position, make a public statement, move the U.S. submarine fleet, or do something with submarine activities. Maybe this has happened, you never know, but to signal to the Russians, that's a step into the abyss. Don't go there. Don't threaten the U.K. with some type of underwater event with submarines.
Well, finally, Bruce, Tuesday was a window into the midterm elections. You know, the media was salivating just how much influence former President Donald Trump still has, and yet all 22 of his endorsed candidates on Tuesday, from Indiana to Ohio, won, and won resoundingly. So obviously Donald Trump still connects very well with the American people and their values, and as you said, there's more to America and why they're voting just than over the issue of abortion or not. So what does it tell you about the former president moving forward?
Well, I think it makes it more and more likely that he will be running in 2024. I think this is kind of a midterm feedback on where he stands after he's been out of office for now a year and a half. So that's what it signals. I think there's still some disunity within the Republicans, but you're right. Politicians are those who hang on to what they perceive to be the winning side. They are not profiles in courage. They are the rare exception. Kevin McCarthy is a very, very clear example of that. So I think that, if anything, this suggests when it comes to 2024, the odds right now are that Trump will be the nominee of the Republican Party.
And not only that, we talk about the 22, but in all primaries involving the former president, he's 55-0, no losses. Pretty impressive record. The president still roars. Coming up in our studio, Neta Schreiber Gamliel is going to be joining us. She's here from Israel, a very successful business enterprise that she's running. She will join us, and then later on we'll salute our mothers. I'm Armstrong Williams, and we'll be back. Neta thank you so much for joining us. So you have a new app inside SafeUp that's very successful and celebrated in entrepreneurship, particularly women entrepreneurship. Give us a little about your background and a little more about SafeUp.
Yes, of course. So SafeUp is a global solidarity network of women helping each other, supporting each other in their day-to-day life to feel more safe in the street, in their home, and actually in all walks of life. My background is not from the tech area. I'm coming from social entrepreneurship. And what brings me to create SafeUp is experience that I had 10 years ago. I went with some friend of mine to a home party when suddenly in that party I realized that one of our friends was missing. And I started to look for her, and I take with me another friend, and we searched the house, and in the end we found her in some room with two guys middle of struggling, half naked. And in the moment that we entered to this room, the guys ran away, and we saved our friend's life. And it was 10 years ago, but it changed me, I guess, as a woman, and changed my group of friends, and it goes with me. And when I have the opportunity to enter to the tech world, I know that maybe we can solve that. Maybe we can make sure that we are not just based on luck, and to create some solution to any girl and woman in the world that will be in their pocket and will make sure that they are safe wherever they are.
So if that app had been in the marketplace at the time, how would it have made a difference?
So I'm a big believer that for her, if she can just click on that and call us immediately.
But how can she call if she's in the struggle? How does that work?
Yeah, you're right. So mainly now our members use the app when they feel unsafe in more soft cases, like walking in the street and this kind of situation. But we work on some deep tech that brings solution to these cases too, like my personal story. And even for me, in that moment, to click on that and to get help from trained women that they are around me and go together with me to look for my friend, it can be a big change.
What does the app connect to?
So it's a network of women. Anyone can download that and register. And while they register, they will pay attention. It's not a regular app because we verified every profile to make sure that the network is safe. And then when they are inside, they can see themselves on the map and see a lot of women around them, all the women around them.
So if you're in a distressful situation, someone can pick it up. It's like a ping.
Yeah.
They know exactly where you're in a distressful situation. Continue.
Yeah, so you just, when you walk on the street, feel unsafe, you click on a button, and then you actually call the guardian and tell them that you need help. You can do that by chatting with them, just to let them know that you're in the area, or to opt on to video call or audio call based on location. And then they will make sure that you are safe.
So why would you just want them to access women? And maybe I'm misspeaking here. Why not access people who are in the surroundings to help them? I mean, there would be men that would gladly, if they got that ping, would go to their rescue.
For sure. But the main problem that we solve right now, and the huge problem, is the sense of safety. One from two women afraid to go out at night after COVID.
Well, I get that. I'm just talking about if something does happen, if you send out a stress call, you want to send it out to anybody who's willing to help and to assist.
I'm not sure. You need to ask women that will answer to you about
I just
that.
think that's common sense.
Yes, but there is two directions here. First of all, we solve the sense of safety in 2 a.m. in the night when I walk outside, even if it's like my co-founder that answer to your call. You don't want that man will accompany you when you are on the way in a dark street. So this is the first reason. The second reason is that it's very hard to verify profile of man, because there is a lot of stories of wonderful men on the paper, but in the end they become do bad thing. So we are planning to enter men to the network in some ways in the future, but not like into the emergency bottom.
Is it that you don't trust men? You think they are the source of this? And it's interesting because I think many people will be surprised. Of course, many won't be, that you have some of the same challenges with women being threatened, being violated, being raped, being killed in Israel as anywhere else in the world. You just don't hear about it in the press as you hear about it here. However, do you think that women are really threatened and vulnerable around the world? And how have women responded to your Safe Up app?
Yes, so women walk into their life all over the world with the sense of feeling that I'm unsafe. Like from the day that I am born and I become woman, so my mother will tell me, when you go out, take care to yourself, how are you going to come back? And to my brother, she will not say that, right? So we start from that point, and it's not so matter where we are in the world. And then like when we start with Safe Up, we see women that really love the idea, because when you know that there is women around you that we check their profile and they are volunteering to help you, they do training, you feel much more safe. And we see our members actually just open the app everywhere that they go, just to make sure that there is guardian around them.
So give us an example of how the app has worked so far with someone in a stressful situation.
Yes, so we have some cases in New York City when some girl walk in the street and someone start to follow her, and she start to run, and then he ran after her, and then she click on the apps and she speak with a guardian that was in the next building, and she just go down and come to her, and immediately when he saw that there are two, he turn around and go away.
Wow, so I can't wrestle. I'm having trouble with this. And maybe I'm naive. I would assume that if a woman out running feels threatened, that the best person to protect her in a stressful situation would be a man.
Maybe you're right, but most of the cases, I just walk, you know, for a woman that walked through this life, so 2 times in all my life someone follow me or something like that, but I can feel unsafe every day walking in the street. And then in all the regular day-to-day, I just want to speak with someone that accompany me. You know, 55% of the women fake calls when they walk outside just to feel more safe.
Oh.
Yeah, so why I need to fake call? I want that someone really knows that I'm here, and if something will happen, they know how to help me. So this is all the idea. They have the option to call the police if something become more extreme, but usually they don't use that.
So how does someone get on your network? I wish we'd asked you to bring the app today. We'd love to see it. How can someone get the app, get on your network? What's the process?
Yeah, so you just need to enter to your Apple Store or Google Play and look for Safe App, and that's it. You need to download that and do the verification. It's a long process if you just compare that to other apps, because we need to verify the profile, and that's it. You are in. If you want to use that as a member, you can use that whatever you want. If you want to become a guardian, the one that volunteer to help to the women in the area, to the teenage that walk outside in the night, so you just do the training inside the app and become a guardian.
So how long does it actually take you to qualify from the time you apply for the app to becoming verified?
So today we already something about 30 seconds in average. It's we have a team that work 24/7, and the process collaborate between smart algorithm to real people.
You know, I know it's Mother's Day weekend. I appreciate what you do, what you're doing with the app. It's called Safe Up, and all you have to need to do is go to Apple Store and type in Safe Up. Any special message for you, being a mother? You have your 4-month-old daughter here with you. I wish we could have brought the kid on the set. That would have been wonderful, because not only are you working, but you're a working mother, and you have your 4-month-old. Any message for your mother on Mother's Day?
Yes, of course. So my first message is to any mother that sees us to encourage your daughter to be part of Safe Up, and then she can become more relaxed to know that wherever she goes, there is women that take care of her. And from another perspective, maybe, I think that we don't need to give up of our dreams. We can do everything. We just need to try, and maybe to be rude sometimes and come with your baby to places.
That's
it's
not
okay.
being rude. That's celebrated here, of course. Yes, because we all were once babies. Well, look, thank you, Neta. I really wish you well. I appreciate your stopping by our studios to talk about Safe Up. We encourage people to go to the App Store. But also remember, men are far more trustworthy than they're given credit for. There are a lot of bad eggs, deadbeats, a lot of people that will do harm. But most men will come to the safety of women in a heartbeat. They will just not leave them for someone to take advantage of to do harm to if they're in a situation to prevent that. So I want you to understand that. I know your app is not an indictment of men, but you want to protect women and give them a network to reinforce each other.
For sure.
And that is a very good thing. Thank you for that. When we come back, the Bass Sisters will be joining us as we continue the conversation about mothers. I'm Armstrong Williams. Though my mom sleeps that internal sleep, her values, her stamp on my life endures until my death. And even in that deep sleep, I say Happy Mother's Day to my beloved mother, Thelma Howard Williams.
Just wanted to say Happy Mother's Day to my mother and my grandmother. These are two very important people in my life who have helped me grow, learn, and always be able to find the best of things.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom, Rochelle Baycoat. I love you so much. You've done so much to me, and you're the reason why I live. Also, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to my beautiful wife, Rebecca Knight. I love you, and you're so great. So, Happy Mother's Day.
Hi, my name is Priscilla, and I would like to say Happy Mother's Day, and this special for my mom. Happy Mother's Day, and happy birthday, Mom.
Hey, just want to say Happy Mother's Day to my mom. Love you, Mom. And I guess Happy Mother's Day to my wife. We have kids. Cats are kids, right?
Hey, Mom. Happy Mother's Day. I hope you have a very wonderful day. And apparently it lands right on my birthday on May 8th, so I can't wait to spend time with you on my birthday as well. So I wish you Happy Mother's Day and love you so much.
And that was the Howard Stirk Holdings team wishing their moms a happy Mother's Day. The Bass Sisters are back with us. Deana Bass Williams from Bass Public Affairs is joining us, and Dee Dee is here in the studio. We're also joined by Colleen McDonald, certified health coach and single mom of a daughter that is now 20 years old, and Cheryl Pullins, life coach, raised two daughters. We welcome all of you to the show. You know, I love Shirley Caesar's song that every day is Mother's Day, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every day is Mother's Day for every mother. Colleen, talk about some of the struggles that mothers struggle against today that are so different during your generation and your parents' generation.
I think now the big difference between this generation and when my mom was raising us, my mom was fortunate enough to be able to stay home with us. Going home after school, there was always someone there, someone to make sure we were doing our homework. And for me, raising my daughter, that was completely different. I had to go to work. I had to put her in childcare. She was able to stay with my mom quite often, again, which was a blessing. But that's definitely something that's very difficult for parents today is childcare and having family close by. I find that a lot of families are spread out across the country. They don't live in the same communities or neighborhoods anymore. And growing up, when my mom was raising us, the family was just all together.
So let me go to you, Cheryl. What about single mothers and have these kids when their mothers having to raise them, and there's just all kind of challenges that they're faced with. And obviously, many of them do a fantastic job. But single mothers today is not what it was like 50 or 60 years ago.
Oh, absolutely not. I always kid around and say, you know, I am so glad I'm not raising little children right now, because I really believe that it's very, very challenging to, as a single mom in particular, because you have these extra layers of technology and social media and all the things that I didn't even have to deal with when my children were younger. So I think there are multiple challenges that are presented to single parents. And we really, really have to find some solutions to come alongside and support these single mothers who are, most cases, doing the very best that they can, but they really need the support of the village, the tribe, to help them navigate these very challenging waters if you're raising children as a single mom in today's world.
You know, Deana, you've been involved in government and policy and with think tanks. Are there policies that have had a long-term uplifting impact on these single-parent households that really works, that really makes a difference?
You know, there are policies long-term that have basically disincentivized marriage. I think that certainly affects single moms. I'm excited that you have this segment in your show just to take a moment to celebrate moms.
Deana, let me.
Somebody else, let me.
Dee, could you can't hear. It's just an audio issue. Go ahead, Dee.
So,
policies that really that affect, make a difference.
Well, like Deana was saying, I think now with there being families and having a mom in the household, and as a mom, first of all, I want to say Happy Mother's Day to our mom, Dorothy Humphrey Bass in Columbus, Georgia. Happy birthday, Mama, and happy birthday Happy Mother's Day to all the moms. But it is, as a mom, it's very important that, I think Cheryl was saying earlier, in regards to having that village. And having that village is very, very important. And when you do have a village, it makes a big difference when you're trying to raise children. Cheryl said that it made a difference back when she was raising her children. My daughter, my youngest, is 14, and I have a son who's 20, and I have 2 bonus daughters. Cheryl, we still need that village today, because having that village in today's society, it's still very difficult being a single mom or being married, and having my husband in the household, still raising children today with so much what they have to deal with, so many things that my 14-year-old is dealing with that I did not even think about having to deal with when I was coming up, or my mother never even thought about having to deal with when she was raising my sister and I. So it's very different, and so that village is hugely important, hugely important.
You know, Colleen, what about the push today to try to change the definition of motherhood and the role of mothers in our society?
Changing the definition
of motherhood. In terms of, there are all kind of issues that face mothers today in terms of how they raise their children. Some people are trying to change the definition of womanhood. Is there a right and wrong time to become a mother? We know, unfortunately, that many young women become moms early, some become late. And then there are stigmas with it.
Yes. I would like to say being prepared would be awesome, but that's not the way it always happens. I think if you have love for your child, then you're ready for motherhood. And having that village also, as the other guests had mentioned, is absolutely key. And we need to do more of that to support moms of any age. And I think especially young moms. I was 35 when my daughter was born, and I still needed a lot of support.
Dee, you wanted to add?
I was going to say, in my daughter's school, they had a T-shirt that said parent. And I was very adamant that I wanted a T-shirt that said mom, because I am a mom. And you can't change the definition of a mom, or you can't change the definition of a woman or a mother. There are two genders, male and a female. You have a father and you have a mother, plain and simple. It's not hard. It's not, rocket science. It's very simple. And that definition of a mom, of a mother, of a woman, it's when you talk about science, there are certain things that a mom has that a father doesn't have, and that's just how it is. And so I'm proud and excited to be a woman, a mother. And so it was very important to me. And the school did change. Now they do have T-shirts in the bookstore that says, mom and dad, which I'm very happy about because I'm proud to be my daughter's mom and my son's mom.
But so Cheryl, do we empower mothers and daughters though sometimes at the expense of feminizing our men and reducing the role that men should play, the larger role in our society?
Yes, we do. When my children were younger, and their father is pastor of a church, and they would say, "Oh, the pastor, is he babysitting?" And I used to laugh, and I used to say, "We are parents. We are not babysitters. These are our children, so no, he's not babysitting." And I do think that we make it so that the father, his presence or how he interacts with his children is potentially very different from how people perceive the mother's responsibility, when I believe that both parents have dual responsibility and that we both are present in our children's lives, potentially, yes, in different ways for different reasons, but we're still on the same playing field as parents.
Deana, there's so many places you can go in the media that always reinforces mothers, highlight them, but you don't really see that with a lot of men in society today. It's becoming less and less. Now, you and your sister, Dee Dee, grew up in a home where your mother's still alive, your father's deceased, you had a healthy respect for your mother and father. And for you as a daughter of your father, that was very important for you, being a wife that you are today, in order to be in a marriage, to understand what it means to be a man, to respect that man, and also how to empower and uplift that man. You cannot talk about mothers without talking about father.
Absolutely. And, our public affairs firm, Bass Public Affairs, Dee Dee and I are both married, but we chose Bass Public Affairs to honor our father and his name. And so, yes, absolutely, I think that what we see today is the marginalization of men. And this notion that men do not matter and that they're not needed, it's been slowly creeping in media even from the 50s until today. It's certainly much more prevalent today, this idea of dumbing down men and making fun of men. And we have to be vigilant and pay attention to it, because the bottom line is that, as Dee Dee said, she's a mom, and my niece and my nephew, they have a father. And so a man and a woman, they offer two very different roles. And we always say there's a distinction of difference, not a distinction of value. They are different, but they are both equally valuable. And I think that as we celebrate Mother's Day, Father's Day is around the corner, and they'll have their day to celebrate. But we celebrate fathers every day of the year because we understand the great importance that our dad has been in our life.
This is Armstrong Williams. We're celebrating Mother's Day. Happy birthday to all the mothers, and we'll be back. So, what I'm going to do when we... And welcome back, Dee Dee.
Hi, Colleen. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and so it's a little bit different. I know that your daughter's 20, but with social media right now, I know that still social media that's what they use on their phones all the time. TikTok, Instagram, everything. How do you encourage your daughter not to be so influenced by what she's seeing on her social media, and just staying focused on what you've taught her in your household?
That's practically a daily conversation. My daughter really enjoys social media, and I get very concerned with some of the things that she puts on there and how easily influenced she is. So it's a conversation we have all the time. And I sit down with her, and even at the age of 20, I know she's considered an adult now. She's living under my roof. I still ask her, show me your phone. I want to see what's on there. I want to see what's on your social media.
I absolutely love that.
She complies with that, and I just let her know it doesn't matter what age you are. You're still learning. You're still growing. You're still maturing. So you need me here to guide you, especially with something. It's so different from when I grew up. We didn't have this. We didn't have social media. We didn't have 100 people in our affairs at one time, or if you had a disagreement with someone. Now it's on social media, and I teach my daughter about communicating one-on-one with people. You don't have to go on Instagram or Facebook to communicate with people. Do that one-on-one.
You know, Cheryl, the pandemic has had an enormous impact on the relationships and families. You have 2 daughters, and a lot of young people, Dee and Deana, kids are moving back home. They can't even afford to live on their own anymore. How is this impacting households, Cheryl?
Well, I know I can say for us, all of our children live on their own. So what the pandemic did for us was that we all live in different states as well. So what we did was we started using Zoom as a way to stay connected. And I think the key here is to be really intentional about how you're going to stay connected with your children. How are you still going to be present in their life, have them present in your life, and be real intentional about that? Technology allows us to do that. And but I think the impact that the pandemic had, we were so focused on, the pandemic and what was going on, and many people were so tuned in to what was happening that we might not have been paying attention to what was happening right within our own families in terms of really being intentional about staying connected.
Deana, people forget, sometimes we just focus on the mothers, we focus on the parents, but you're an aunt, you love Dee Dee's children just like their own. You have your own impact. There's certain times when they can't go to their mother, can't go to their father, they'll come to you as an aunt. There's so many things that really contribute to the development and the maturity and the wisdom of these young kids today, boys and girls, and the role of family, whether it's sisters, brother, cousins, godfather, godmother, it plays a big role, Deana.
Yes, absolutely, and I take pride in my role. Dee Dee calls me a paint professional aunt, no kids. I do have now bonus kids. I have married a man with grown kids, but I am a professional aunt. I call myself a 5-star general when it comes to being an aunt, and I think that people need to recognize the value of aunts. By the way, Uncle and Aunt Day is July 26th, if anyone's ever wondering, but that also happens to be Dee Dee's birthday, so Professional Aunt Day always falls on Dee Dee's birthday, so we don't often celebrate it. But yes, aunts are important, uncles are important, the extended family has so traditionally been important, certainly in American communities. And I do, my niece and my nephew, I have a unique and special relationship with them, and they do, as my nephew did yesterday, called me because he needed me to come up to his college to help him do some things that he did. He's trying to do some surprises for his mom on Mother's Day. So yes, I do have a unique and special relationship with my nephew and my niece, and I just think that people do need to recognize the importance of that extended family.
And Cheryl, no matter what, teaching kids about morality, right from wrong, about faith, good judgment, making good choices in life, morality still matters in the household.
Yes, it does. It does. For us, my children grew up, in a solidly Christian home. Their father was a pastor, he still is, so teaching our girls, we had 2 girls, teaching those girls about morality and how to be moral and how to be ethical and how to be all of those things was very, very important. And I was the heavy in the house. I was the one that kind of made them toe the line. It just worked out that way. And the beauty of it is you may not see it until they're in their 20s, in their 30s. You may not see the result of that effort until they're older, because they understand and they start to make very sound, morally sound decisions. It might not always be the case. You might not always agree with what decisions they make, but then at the end of the day, it's our job to love them through that.
Oh yeah, Deana?
I have a question for Cheryl. And Dee and I were raised in the AME church. We now attend non-denominational churches, but certainly our foundation comes from our AME upbringing. And as we see across the nation things like the definition of woman changing and the role of parents, even in deciding how their children are being educated, we think about when Martin Luther King warned that the church would become an irrelevant social club. What do you believe, as a woman who is a woman of faith, what should the role of the church be in pushing back on this narrative that women can be men and that parents don't have a voice?
Well, I think one of the things the church really should do is use their voice, use their platform, speak out, say something. It seems like a lot of in particular, our top church leaders that we know across the nation, they're very quiet on a lot of key topics. And these in particular, yes, you might hear them, say something on a Sunday morning from the pulpit, but some of these leaders, they have very national, widespread, global platforms, and we're not hearing them. They're just really interestingly quiet, and that concerns me. That concerns me that they're not willing to stand flat-footed on what they know to be true and not say anything.
Colleen, you are a health coach. So many young people today are dealing with an opioid crisis, suicide, depression. How do you help mothers as well as their children through these new challenges? Like, they're just overwhelming today.
First thing that I talk to parents about, if they have a child struggling with an opioid addiction or any kind of depression, is to educate themselves as much as possible, and also not to have guilt. That gets in the way quite often. Don't feel guilty. Just continue to talk to your children. Learn whatever you possibly can about the addiction, about depression. The church also can play a big role in that. Keep spiritually connected with your children at all times. That plays a huge role too.
Deana's question was great, and I want to come back to Colleen, and well, actually both of you, because when you both mentioned your faith and going to church, it is, like Deana said, we were both raised in the AME church, and the foundation, why do you think some of these huge ministers, some of these huge congregations, why aren't they speaking out on some of these issues that are so important? Our children are supposed to be our future, and if we're taking our kids, now we're not actually physically in church. Some of us are not because of the pandemic, and so we're still doing church at home, which was good at some point, but there's always something said about being in the midst of other believers and being in the church and being in that space. Why do you think some of these leaders and some of these church leaders and some of these organizations, these faith organizations, why aren't they speaking out against some of these things that are so important, that are changing the way we look at mothers, the way we look at marriage? Why aren't they saying what they need to say? If they're preaching it from the gospel, from Genesis to Revelations on Sundays, why aren't they coming out saying something about it?
Well, I think there are probably multiple layers as to why they're not speaking out, why they're not saying things. Some, it could be just, personally, they don't want the spotlight on them, which, a lot of them it already is, but we know they don't, then there's cancel culture. I think cancel culture plays into that as well. Not wanting to be canceled, if you will, by social media. And also maybe some of their own personal relationships that they have. I think there are multiple pieces to this as to why, as a collective, we're not hearing people talk about, or these leaders, these top leaders, church leaders, speak to what's happening in our society.
You know, as I thank all of our guests, Bruce Feinm, our CIA operative, and everyone joining us now as we reflect on the important role of mothers in society. You know, there are a lot of people who grow up who don't have a great experience with their mothers, who grow up and they don't even speak to their mothers, don't even communicate. They grow up in abusive situations. Kids grow up in situations where they came about through incest, and kids and parents are raped. There's just so much tragedy in the world today. And we just have to thank God just for his mercy and grace, and for those, the majority of them, that continue to provide that support and foundations for children all over the world. Thank you for joining us, and happy Mother's Day.